Excuse me. Please check out our weekly e-news where you'll be able to find all the details of what's happening in and around UUFNN each week. To subscribe to the e-news and to receive other updates, fill out a contact card at the front desk or electronically on our website. Today is Library Sunday. Take a moment after service to peruse our library right outside the doors of this sanctuary, where you'll find an abundance of materials to help you explore Unitarian Universalism and the myriad sources that inspire our faith. Next Sunday, October 1st, is apple harvest time. After service, everyone is invited to harvest apples in our community garden and orchard. The following Sunday, October 8th, there will be an apple harvest picnic. Bring anything with an apple theme to share, and we'll all eat and enjoy what we have harvested together. There are sign-up sheets in the gathering room today for those who would like to participate. If you're joining us on Zoom, please stick around after the service for the virtual coffee hour. And if you're here in person, please enjoy coffee and conversation in the gathering room. Finally, we have a congregant, Jessica, who is looking for a room to rent. If you have space available, please see Jackie, who has her contact information. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Oh. Hi, my name is Sheila Shea, pronouns she and her, and I am a member of what we call the membership ministry. And today, I'm giving an award to a few people. In addition to all the people you see sitting around you in this beautiful great room every Sunday, there are another 20-plus members and friends watching on Zoom from home. Membership Ministry today wants to award 6 people with our special and first-time Zoom Awards. For consistent, clap. Oh, hey. Woo! For consistently attending Sunday service on Zoom. These folks have been at Zoom service over 80% of the Sundays so far this year. Woo! It's incredible. Their names are listed on the screen, right up there, and I'm going to read them also. Linda Doro, Joyce Brown Fisher, Bob Gaw, Robin Palmer, Eve Lambert, and Loretta Terlizzi. Wait a minute, I'm saying something special about Mary, but thank you for picking that up. You guys are good. Congratulations and thank you for your loyalty to UUFNN. We are also giving a special honorary award to Mary Lee, who almost every Sunday, is sitting there down in Carson City and is the host on Zoom, making sure all goes well online. Thank you, Mary. Okay. Now, I don't know if you can see this, but I'll leave it up here after service. You can come and take a look at it. It is an awesome chalice. Each Zoom winner will receive a beautiful handmade 3D printer, don't you know, a chalice from like the one I'm holding up. And you probably can't see it, but it even says Unitarian Universalist on the top of it. And the chalice holds a little tea light, and it comes in various colors. The winners will be able to use it during the chalice lighting part of the service. And it was made for us by a membership ministry person, Leah Case, who isn't around much, but she is when she can. And her brother-in-law made 150 of these for us on his 3D printer. So thank you both. And thank you, winners, for staying with us on Zoom. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with all of you. My name is Shelly Thompson. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the interim minister here at UUFNN. Yay! I want to talk to you a little bit about why I'm wearing this orange shirt. I got this when I was up in Canada. They have on September 30th a national holiday every year called Orange Shirt Day. And I know it sounds funny, but it's not funny at all. It's about all of the children who were taken away from their homes and families and sent to residential schools run by the church primarily up there and the state. And we know we have the exact same system down here. Stewart School, right up down the road from us, had this situation. And a great many of these children died in these schools. They have found mass graves at a number of them. That's also true here in the United States. And there are many, many survivors and their kids and their grandkids that are still deeply affected by what the Canadian government acknowledged was a cultural genocide. They stripped away the belonging of all of these children the moment they took them away from their homes. And many of them suffered horrific abuse. And by the time they came home, if they ever did, they didn't belong there anymore. Their communities didn't quite know what to do with them. And it made it very difficult then for them to grow up and become parents because they hadn't been parented themselves. And so there is a tragic history of these residential schools. And one of the residential school survivors, a woman named Phyllis, before she went to residential school, she was about 6 or 7 years old. She thought it was exciting to get to go to school. She didn't know what was ahead of her. And she went shopping and she bought a beautiful orange shirt that was her special shirt she was going to wear to her brand new school. And when she got there, they stripped it off of her. They shaved her head. They treated her for lice. They gave her a number and never used her name again. And she never saw that shirt again. And that story became emblematic of what these children went through. And so we honor them and we say, never forget, and every child matters. And we have Orange Shirt Day. The wearing of orange is now the color. And even though this happened to Phyllis up in Canada, we do acknowledge this same phenomenon and horrible cultural genocide that took place here in the United States. We're behind Canada. We don't have a full truth and reconciliation program yet, but we're working on it. And the University of Nevada is having a walk-run for Every Child Matters on September 28th. So these are events that are starting to come into our culture as well. And we want to honor, in addition to doing a land acknowledgement, we want to acknowledge the brutality and the history of colonialism and being white settlers in a place where the people who had been here for millennia were systematically removed. So that's why I'm wearing orange. And it's a time for, as we will hear more about Yom Kippur and the Jewish faith, thinking about atonement. What does it mean that we live here on indigenous lands and this is our history? How can we be accountable moving forward? Even though we're not responsible directly for what happened, how can we be accountable to be much better friends and neighbors and siblings to all of our indigenous relations? Well, thank you for letting me tell you about that. It's important, very dear to my heart. And now we light our chalice with the words of Starhawk. We are all longing to go home to some place we've never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned, we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. Community. Somewhere, there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere, a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Voices will celebrate with us whenever we come into our own power. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends, someplace where we can be free. Let us worship together.
Please rise as you're willing and able and join us in singing There's a River Flowing in My Soul.
We've come to the part of our service that is called A Time for All Ages. And it's designed as an interactive storytelling moment for people of all ages. And I'm gonna be honest, it's designated really for youth, children, young adults. And we're doing it a little different today. And so I'm gonna invite everybody to take a breath. I wanna invite you to find a posture that feels grounding, that feels centering for you. Feel the air enter your lungs. I invite you to exhale. I invite you to take another breath. And on that breath, I invite you to bring the childlike wonder that you hold within you to the forefront. It might be an inner child. It might be a youthful spirit. It might be the spirit of rebellion. I invite you to bring it forward. And as you exhale, I invite you to open your eyes, and I'm going to read a story. And the name of this story is From the Stars in the Sky to the Fish in the Sea, written by Kai Chen Tom and illustrated by Wai Yant Lee and Kai Young Chin. We read this story at our Drag Queen Story Hour back during our auction, and one of my favorite spiritual practices is the art of rereading. And so for those who have heard this story before, I welcome you to hear it in new ears. And for those who are hearing it for the first time, welcome. Once upon a time, in a little blue house on a hill, on the edge of town, a baby was born. They were born with both the moon and while the moon and the sun were in the sky. So the baby couldn't decide what to be. Boy or girl, bird or fish, cat or rabbit, tree or star? So the baby looked a little like everything. They looked very strange. All the same, the baby's mother gave her child a bath and rocked them in her arms. "Your name," she said, "is Mulan." She sang a song that her own mother had sung to her long ago. "Wherever you dream of, I believe you can be. From the stars in the sky to the fish in the sea. You can crawl like a crab or with feathers fly high, and I'll always be here. I'll be near, standing by. And you'll know that I love you till the day that I die." And even though they couldn't decide, the baby felt loved. Mulan grew up to be a strange, magical child who was always changing. They grew feathers and wings to fly with the bluebirds in the morning, and scales and a tail to swim with the fish in the afternoon, and fur and paws to play with puppies in the evening. No matter how many things Mulan became, their mother always brought them back into the little blue house, gave them a bath, and tucked them into bed. At the day's end, as the stars rose, she sang, "Whatever you dream of, I believe you can be, from the stars in the sky to the fish in the sea." And Mulan felt loved. One day, it was time for the child to go to school. They were so excited. So they grew a tail of peacock feathers and a coat of tiger stripes. "Have fun," said Mulan's mother. But when they got to school, the other students were either boys or girls. They had no feathers, no scales, no leaves, no fur, no fins, not even sparkles. No one invited Mulan to play. One little boy ran up to the child and asked, "What are you supposed to be?" Mulan didn't know how to answer. When they came home, their mother asked them how they liked school. "It's okay," Mulan said. "Did you make any friends?" "Not really," said Mulan. That night, Mulan's mother tucked them into bed and sang, "You can crawl like a crab or with feathers fly high. I'll always be here. I'll be near, standing by. And you know that I'll love you till the day that I die." And Mulan felt loved, but also worried. The next day, they wore a turtle shell and porcupine spines, so no one could pull or poke Mulan, but the other children still pointed and whispered. "Did you make any friends today?" asked their mother. "Not really," said Mulan. That night, Mulan's mother tucked them into bed and sang, "Whatever you dream of, I believe you can be, from the stars in the sky to the fish in the sea." And Mulan felt loved, but they also felt very sad. The next day, Mulan wore no feathers, no scales, no leaves, no fur, no fins, no shell, no spines, not even sparkles. Mulan was invited to play baseball with the boys. No one pointed or whispered or laughed or stared. But when Mulan joined the little girls playing hopscotch, "Boys don't play hopscotch," said a little girl. "Are you a boy or a girl anyway?" asked a little boy. "Didn't you have a shell the other day?" asked a little girl. "And feathers the day before?" "What are you supposed to be?" said several children at once. "I don't know," shouted Mulan. And they galloped out of the playground on horses' hooves, swam through the stream with a fish's tail, and soared up the hill on eagle's wings. "How was school?" asked Mulan's mother. "I wore feathers and stripes so the other kids would think I was beautiful, but they thought I was weird. And then I wore a shell and spines so that no one would pull or poke me, but they wouldn't talk to me. And then I tried to just be like everyone else, but I haven't made any friends. I can't decide what to be. Why do I have to be just one thing? It isn't always easy to be different from everyone else, said their mother. But you can only be who you are. What if the other children don't like who I am? Sniffled Mulan. Their mother smiled sadly. I don't know, she admitted. But I do know this. Whatever you dream of, I believe you can be, from the stars in the sky to the fish in the sea. And Mulan felt loved, and that night they slept a deep sleep. The next day, Mulan wore fur, feathers, scales, leaves, and many sparkles that glittered like stars. For a moment, none of the other children spoke. Then, a little girl said, "You can fly? That's so cool." "I like your sparkles," said a little boy. "I'm sorry I pulled your feathers," said the boy with red hair. "I was a little jealous of them." Mulan asked, "Does anyone want to play with me?" They showed the other children how to gallop like horses, climb like monkeys, and swim like fish. It was fun to be many different things. And the child of fur, feathers, scales, leaves, and sparkles, who was neither boy nor girl, but many things and always changing, felt happy. In the little blue house on the hill, on the edge of town, Mulan's mother smiled and sang the song her mother had sung to her once upon a time. Whatever you dream of, I believe you can be, from the stars in the sky to the fish in the sea. You can crawl like a crab or with feathers fly high, and I'll always be here. I'll be near, standing by. And you know that I'll love you till the day that I die. Whatever you dream of, I believe you can be, for you are my child, courageous and free. The end. And the reason I chose that story for today is the theme of our service today is belonging. And someone who is quoted, honestly, a little too often, but summarizes it really well, Brené Brown defines belonging as being a part of something bigger than yourself, like school or your family or UUFNN, but it is also the courage to stand alone and belong to yourself above all else. In the story, Mulan teaches us that it's hard to find a place bigger than yourself where you can find belonging. And for a long time here in the United States and in other parts of the country, the understanding of belonging was through a lens of assimilation. That assimilation requires that we change who we are in order to meet the wider culture rather than change the culture to meet who we are. And this story offers a different imagination. It demonstrates that when we belong to ourselves, when we are honest that maybe we're not this and we're not that, and maybe we are always changing, and maybe we're a little complex for other people to understand, that doesn't prohibit us from finding belonging. It's actually in those moments where we live into that, where we allow ourselves to be who we are, that we find those bigger places where we can find belonging. And as we go through our service today, I want to invite you to think about, as you cultivate a sense of belonging here, how are you allowing yourself to stand and belong to yourself first? And from that place of belonging to yourself, how do you then welcome the selves of others around you? And I think if we all practice that, because nobody's perfect, maybe we too can sparkle and grow fur and feathers and stripes and wings and have a place where we have a deep sense of belonging. Thank you.
Now is our time for prayer and meditation. I have one sorrow to share. Larry Oakley, Nancy's husband, fell and broke his hip and also suffered a stroke. He's currently in the hospital and in a coma. Please hold him in our hearts and warm wishes for a full recovery. Tonight at sunset begins Yom Kippur, one of the holiest days in Judaism. Yom Kippur is the Day of Atonement, where one asks for forgiveness for their sins, particularly their sins against other human beings. According to the Talmud, you cannot atone for sins done against another until that person has been appeased. Therefore, it is considered imperative to repair the harm that one has done to others, either before or during Yom Kippur. Our meditation today centers on forgiveness of others. Let yourself sit comfortably. Allow your eyes to close and your breath to be natural and easy. Let your body and mind relax. Breathe gently into the area of your heart and let yourself feel all the barriers you have erected and the emotions that you have carried because you have not forgiven. Perhaps not forgiven yourself or not forgiven others. Visualize the ways that you may have hurt or harmed another, have betrayed them, abandoned them, caused them suffering, knowingly or unknowingly, out of pain, fear, anger, or confusion. Picture a memory that still burdens your heart. To that person in your mind or that memory, repeat, "I ask for your forgiveness. I ask for your forgiveness. I ask for your forgiveness." Feel your own sorrow and regret. If you can, and if it will not cause further pain or harm to the other person, make a promise to seek out that person and finally release this burden from your heart and ask them for forgiveness. And allow yourself to forgive as well. And now in your own time and in your own way, bring your attentions back to this room and open your eyes. With our gesture of openness and connection, one hand on your heart, one hand open to the world, know that we are all imperfect, that we each make mistakes in our interactions with those around us. But within each of us is the power to forgive and to ask for forgiveness, to repair and remake the relationships that form the vital fabric of our lives. Blessed be.
Preemptive radical inclusion is all about creating a culture that fosters genuine belonging. As in all things Unitarian Universalist, preemptive radical inclusion draws upon our practice of covenant and right relationship at a very deep level. It calls us to put our values into action within ourselves, as individuals, among us, as a covenantal faith community, and beyond to everyone in the wider world. There is an extraordinary UU minister named C.B. Beale, pronouns they and them, who focuses on preemptive radical inclusion as a part of their justice and peace organizational consulting work. CB is dedicated to helping us all grow and learn the practices of PRI that give us the skills to better live our values and build beloved community. Emphasis on practice. CB says practice does not make perfect. None of us will ever be perfect. So we all have to help each other and think of inclusion as a spiritual practice that we're doing together. At a recent presentation, CB shared a quote from Mia Birdsong when a podcast with my favorite title, Community as Verb, said, "We're all conditioned to try to move at the pace of patriarchy, capitalism, and white supremacy, not at the pace of love and humanity and liberation. And if you and I talk at the speed of liberation, I imagine we'll be less out of breath." And so CB advises, when we want to practice preemptive radical inclusion, we need to slow down, to go at the pace of love, humanity, and liberation, because it requires this deliberate concentration to counteract all of the conditioning from our society and remember how to be inclusive and offer belonging. This is how we can intentionally widen our circle of concern and compassion until when we say that word we mean everybody. I'm going to share with you a lot of CB's own words. They tell us preemptive radical inclusion lives at the intersection of trauma-aware and anti-oppressive practices. It's a way to examine privilege and to take on responsibility. It's harm reduction work. We are all both privileged and challenged. We benefit from and are oppressed by our communities and social and political structures in different measure. When we are in positions of leadership, it is our responsibility to identify the ways we benefit from structures of oppression, as well as the ways we are marginalized and or oppressed, to sit with the complication and the discomfort as we figure out how we can be part of a liberation struggle that reaches back in history and forwards towards justice. Yes. The complexity and discomfort come from all the ways in which our social identities interact with the structures of power and privilege in our culture. Our social identities are not the personality traits or interests or likes and dislikes that make up what we often think of as our identity and sense of self. Social identities are the ones that describe the socially constructed groups that are present within all human societies, such as race, gender, religion, sexual orientation, economic status, and so on. When we speak of diversity, we're largely referring to these individual social identities. No two of us are the same. We are diverse. A couple of more helpful definitions for this work. Equity happens when everyone is treated according to their diverse needs in a way that enables all people to participate perform, and engage to the same extent. It's very different than equality. Equity helps us make room for all people. Inclusion is creating a culture that embraces, respects, accepts, and values diversity. It is a mindful and equitable effort to meet individual needs so that everyone feels valued, respected, and able to contribute to their fullest potential. Social identities give us diversity, and that diversity has long been used to make people the target of oppression, marginalization, erasure, and genocide. This is why, as Unitarian Universalists, we feel such a strong moral imperative to learn and consistently practice equity and inclusion as an antidote, as the means by which we can honor the worthiness and dignity of every person. We will be using some visual aids that I handed out. Hopefully you have these copies, and if you don't, your neighbor has one that you can share. We have a social identity wheel that is going to help us see ourselves and our own diversity more clearly, how complex we all are. Every one of these identities has a story about us, or two or three. And this social identity wheel is adapted from a 21-day racial equity habit building challenge that was created in 2014 by Dr. Eddie Moore Jr. and Debbie Irving to encourage people to understand power, privilege, supremacy, oppression, and equity. A tall order. And we'll use this other tool called the intersectionality wheel of privilege to view how our cultural structures react to differing identities. This one comes from Tessa Watkins, and it's based on one that was made by Sylvia Duckworth a number of years ago. Don't let the pretty colors fool you. This is an ugly system. It shows us that power and privilege are concentrated in the middle with a certain small, specific set of identities. And then moving outward from there, people become increasingly erased and marginalized based on their diversity, their difference from these central identities. And so we can see too the intersectionality, that the more of these marginal identities you have, the harder it gets. The more barriers are thrown up in front of you that block your access and opportunity to equitably participate in society. Preemptive radical inclusion is about a culture that fosters genuine belonging. And creating this culture is a choice that requires mindful effort. We don't want our society to look like this anymore. We shouldn't be able to draw this and say, oh yeah, this is how it is. We want something that includes everyone and values our diversity. People have been working hard for millennia to destroy this thing. I think if you look over here, you can see Jesus battling the Romans. You can see the ancient Hebrew people battling the Egyptians and the Babylonians that enslaved them. We can see our entire history of colonialism and imperialism, slavery and genocide. There are a lot of nasty stories, right up to now seeing Florida and Texas over here, making people flee for their lives. They are fleeing for their lives because they have differing gender identities and orientations. We definitely want this to change. So we want to take down first the barriers that our implicit biases and our culture have conditioned into our own ways of thinking. They're in there, even though we don't want them to be. We may have noticed around here we do our best to practice correct pronouns. It's not always easy. I still mess up. And I have to slow down and remember to practice inclusion over and over and over again, because I'm going to keep making mistakes, and you all help me with that. Because this is a community where we lovingly covenant to hold each other accountable in love. And we're able to forgive and begin again in love when we have this strong intention this strong desire to continue to work at it, work at it, work at it. We know we have the capacity to change. We know it. We've seen it. So transforming our own implicit biases and internal barriers that we've been told exist and they really shouldn't. It's a deliberate practice of welcome and inclusion. And so I want you to use yourself as an example. And those of you online, Mary Lee has the links to these same documents. She's going to put those links in the chat so you can click on them and see exactly what we're seeing and do this with us. And so we're going to take some time with this social identity wheel first, pardon me, and think about what identities you would put in each of these boxes. There's an emphasis on finding your own words. There are examples of some of the words that other people might use. If you want your own word and it works better for you, use it, make it your own. And there are blank spaces to fill in things that are missing that you know are vitally important to your identity. So in the center is your individuality with all your likes and dislikes and all that, all the wonderful things we might like to talk to you about and that you might want to share excitedly with all of us. And then come these social identities. And some of these can change over our lifetime and some of them don't. But just notice that it's dynamic. It's not a static picture. And by thinking about ourselves first, we realize how much complexity we each have. There are stories for all of these. Every single person. This is just a snippet of the kind of diversity and complexity we all carry, the worlds within us all. So take some time to think about that wheel. And there's some wonderful reflection questions at the bottom of this instruction sheet. And I want us today to look especially at question 7 and question 8. How do our identities give or take away power and privilege in society? How do our identities either give us power and privilege or take it away from us in our society? What have you experienced in your own life? And how do your identities affect your sense of belonging wherever you go, home, work, school, out in the community, in here? Think of some examples from your own life when you felt welcomed, you felt included, you experienced belonging, and other times when you didn't. I know when I was little, I experienced the other kids making fun of me and not including me and not wanting to play with me. Probably a lot of us had that experience at least once or twice. And then I remember the tremendous sense of belonging I felt when I came to a UU community for the first time. So take a look at this, and you can use this intersectionality wheel of privilege as you think about your own identities and you think about how power and privilege operate in your own life and what that might mean for the kind of work that you need to do on being more inclusive to everyone around you. Where are the ones that are hardest for you? Where are the ones that are easy for you? How can you help all of us? What gifts and talents do you bring to help all of us do better at this? So take a few minutes to do this, and you're free to talk quietly with your neighbors about it. These are the kinds of things. I hope you take this home and spend some more time on it and share it with people. It's really a very valuable exercise. So we'll take some time for some meditation and reflection about identity and power and privilege. I know there's so much there, and I hope you bring these conversations with you into coffee hour and beyond. CB tells us that inclusion doesn't simply mean that we include others in our circle of what we already do and how we already do it. Inclusion means we expand the experience to encourage deep involvement and make that involvement possible. Inclusion without centering the voices of the most marginalized is not inclusion. When we involve others in the creation of our projects and communities, our we becomes larger, and what we do and how we do it transforms into something new, and we change. Evidence of our success is not more people in attendance. Hear me. Evidence of success is not more people in attendance. It's that we ourselves have changed. And skill number 4, they give us out of 10. Did it again, they. Preemptive radical inclusion means that we intentionally position ourselves before we know anything at all about anyone in the room to presuppose that everyone, not just people like us, but everyone, is already and always in the room. We don't wait for an individual to tell us what they need and then meet their needs. We create experiences that preemptively involve them. And we do this because this is the kind of community we want. We want a community that is full and welcoming, a community that creates justice and well-being and offers belonging. And as UUFNN goes through this time of transition, deciding who you are and who you want to together become, becoming more radically inclusive, CB gives us this wisdom for the journey. The word radical is there in preemptive radical inclusion because if we're doing this correctly, the created experience will not be the expected experience. It might even be dramatically, radically different. And how we make this happen is not something most of us were taught. We've been limited by the framework we inherited. We perceive the world the way we were taught to perceive the world. And now we are empowered to choose a new way. We all get free together. Amen. May it be so.
Now is the time to share our bounty. The Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Northern Nevada is entirely self-funded and self-directed, so it is only through your generosity, not only of your monetary gifts, but also your donations of time and talent, that we are able to sustain the beautiful and valuable work of this congregation. If you're here in person, we'll be passing the basket. If you follow along virtually, or if you prefer electronic payments, you can text 73256, 73256, type UUFNN in the body of the text and hit send. Note that you'll have the option to contribute to both our operating fund and to our Share the Plate partner. You can also mail a check to our office at 780 Del Monte Lane, Reno, Nevada, 89511, or donate online on our website using our secure payment service. Our Share the Plate recipient for September is Tu Casa Latina. Tu Casa Latina is a nonprofit organization that provides humanitarian forms of relief for immigrant women, men, and children who are victims of crimes, domestic violence, abuse, and trafficking here in Northern Nevada. Founded in 2014, Tu Casa Latina also connects members of the immigrant community to a broad range of resources, services, and opportunities in healthcare, education, employment, and social services. Now, let the offering begin. Please join David and myself in blessing our offerings. To the work of this fellowship, which is helping more people grow in love, faith, justice, and joy, we dedicate ourselves, and these are offerings. Thank you.
We extinguish our chalice today with the words of Richard Gilbert. Be gentle with one another. It is a cry from the lives of people battered by thoughtless words and brutal deeds. It comes from the lips of those who speak them and the lives of those who do them. Who of us can look inside another and know what is there of hope and hurt, or promise and pain? Who can know from what far places each has come, or to what far places each may hope to go? Our lives are like fragile eggs. They crack and the substance escapes. Handle with care. Handle with exceedingly tender care, for there are human beings within. Human beings as vulnerable as we are, who feel as we feel, who hurt as we hurt. Life is too transient to be cruel with one another. It is too short for thoughtlessness, too brief for hurting. Life is long enough for caring. It is lasting enough for sharing, precious enough for love. Be gentle with one another. Thank you, my darlings. The service has ended, and now the real service begins. If you'll rise in body or spirit and join us in singing, Building Bridges.
I'm gonna tell them right now. Oh, okay. No rehearsal tomorrow. Oh, what?
We're not having that meeting.
Huh?
And we don't sing Sunday?
Right, we don't sing Sunday.
Okay. Thursday is.
Oh, yes. Yeah, no rehearsal tomorrow. I need a
Shelly and everybody's talking.
Oh, is there a meeting tomorrow? I didn't get it. I gotta do post loops. Well, okay, then, if there's a meeting, then yes, come. But if there's no meeting, don't come. Somebody should let us all know.
I think that would be Shelly.
Yeah, I didn't get a notice that we were doing something.
So I'm over that thing about criteria.
I didn't know we had a meeting tomorrow night, do we? Okay, yeah, I'll find out. Okay, I'll find out, I'll email everyone. Okay, I'll find out, email